Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, it says we're live. Are we live?
Yeah, we're live.
Great. Okay, I'm going to have you manage the chat. All
Sure.
right. Great. Well, welcome back to Salty Saints. My name is Hayden Holm. I'm here with Tanner, and we're doing another live stream. Thought we'd give it another shot. And we are going to tonight be tackling a handful of Reddit questions as well as some questions that we got through our Discord and any questions that come through the chat. We'll just have some fun with it. Okay?
Sounds good.
Great. Big welcome to Nursery Leaders Unite. Love seeing you in the
On
chat. That's
time.
great.
Yeah.
Punctual. Doing better than we are.
Yeah.
So we'll get this party started. So let me see if I can
Perfect.
share my screen real quick. Hopefully this doesn't blow anything up.
Yeah. Well, I can hear it. We'll wait for their response there.
Okay, I think I had to add my new mic there. Okay,
Oh, okay.
we'll give that another shot. We'll trim this up in post if that's the case. Okay,
We'll fix it in post.
we'll
Yeah.
fix this in post. Okay, so from accomplished.786, it's hard seeing peers be so against the church. I'm 23 with social media. I see so many people my age leave the church or will be actively speaking out against it, and I get it. Everyone will have their own opinion. I'm extremely firm in my beliefs, but there are times when I find myself annoyed knowing I'm in the minority in this age range. Just in this month, I've declined 2 parties because I knew they would only be drinking, which truly does not bother me. I've been around drunk friends and would much rather have a nice evening to myself. What bothers me is that I'm so open to treating everyone equally, I do not care how people want to live their lives. I will be friends with anyone, regardless of religion, sexuality, race, or political standing, but I will see and hear people say, I could never be friends with a Mormon. I knew when I got back into the church at age 21, it would be a big commitment at this age, and I don't regret it one bit. It's just sad to see Satan's influence on the world. My best friend, that I've had for years, will repost things on TikTok of silly videos bashing conservatives and Mormons, and she's never expressed this in person. But I hate knowing that's how she and so many people feel. I've had beautiful, happy friends that left the church, and within 2 years, their mental and physical health drastically declined. I just don't see how these people can be so blind to how they're living, and how hypocritical it is to say treat everyone equal and then bash the church. Sorry, this was just a vent. All right. So this is the first question, or the first Reddit post we've got. What are your initial thoughts?
I mean, I've had this experience many a time actually. The first thing I want to tackle with that one though is the weird ability for people to just completely sever themselves from their online selves and their in reality selves, their in-person self.
Yeah.
The fact that like they can be friendly in person and then go around and just start bashing our church online, that one really bothers me because I've had multiple people do that in real life, like come over to my house, share dinner with me, and then the next day go out and post something that's wildly inappropriate. for our
Yeah.
relationship, being absolutely hateful. So it's like, man, that is bizarre that people think that that's just okay and that they can kind of escape the consequences of that, which is a loss of a friendship or a damaged friendship that you have to work to repair that trust in.
Yeah. Yeah,
So I
no.
think he's
Come over
okay to
to my
vent on that
house
one
or
because,
dinner
yeah,
with me,
that happens all the
and then
time.
the
And how
next day,
to
like,
handle that, I feel like you just need to call people out immediately. Don't let it sit for a while, because the longer you let it sit, the bigger problem it's going to be. So if someone is
So put him to
being something
task is what you're
different,
saying.
yeah, well, just like bring it up. Like, I mean, it takes a lot of courage. It's going to be super uncomfortable to be like, hey, is this your post? Like, I saw this post on here. Do you really feel that way? Like,
Yeah.
well, how are they going to react? That would be really difficult situation to be in. But the truth that you get out of that, the honesty that you see in their reaction, would be worth it, I think. But it doesn't have to end the relationship. It would be helpful, though, to start communicating with that friend or family member, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be bashing my church online. If
Yeah.
you respect me as a person, maybe there's a more appropriate way to voice your concerns or any issues you have with the church.
Sure, sure. It reminds me of that last episode that we did where there was this gal that was like hate ranting on the church, and she was talking about, the algorithm and stuff like that, and giving everybody this, this mom kind of like down talking to her toddler little tutorial about algorithms. There was a piece in that video. I don't know if you caught this. At the very end, she said something like, "This is really who I am, but I'm actually a down-to-earth person outside of Instagram. I'm really cool. I'm really chill. But if I have a camera in front of me and no audience and no pressure, then you're going to get my unfiltered thoughts and feelings. And I think that's one of the curses of the modern age, is that everybody has a platform. And I don't think everybody should have a platform, because what that does is it takes away agency and accountability. Well, not agency, but it takes away your accountability for your words and your thoughts and your actions, where in reality, with your direct friend group, you would have immediate accountability for your words. And so
Yeah.
you see this big group of people that will leave the church and will start just giving their unfiltered opinions, and they'll call it, "I'm speaking truth to power, man." But then you confront them in real life, and they're like, "Oh, they're nice people, delightful people," and they never say that to you in real life. So there's this little bit of a disconnect, a mental disconnect that's happening there. And it's there's this rule of thumb that I typically will tell people. It's like, Jordan Peterson says this: people act out their belief systems, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. That's what we see in the story of the Good Samaritan. So there was the Levite, there was the priest. They see this wounded Jewish man, this brother that's on this highway, and both of them pass this person up, even though their beliefs and what they proclaimed to the world was, we should be compassionate, we should take care of our fellow man, we should worship God, which would entail helping out our fellow man. And so their belief system was actually being expressed through their action of looking at this guy and saying, "No, not today, I'm moving forward." Where the Samaritans were enemies of the Jews. They had been accused of corrupting their belief system because the Assyrians came in and they kind of meshed their belief systems with the Assyrians. And so the Jewish people viewed the Samaritans as just completely detached, almost as traitors, people who had turned their back on their faith. So the Samaritan actually stopped and helped this guy out, who was actually, and so you see he was actually manifesting his belief system. He was acting it out. And that's something that I think we should keep in mind. And so for this guy on Reddit, I would say, don't focus too much on what people are saying online where there's no accountability. Focus on how they actually act in reality, And if they do become a toxic person, where every time you're around them, they're like, "Oh, I'm like a jaded cop," they sit there just like, "Gave my best years to that church, and what did it do for me?" Maybe distance yourself from that person, because they're going to bring you down. But if they're still great and they respect you and they value you as a friend, keep that friendship going. And it can probably, you will probably have a great influence on them and their faith moving forward. But what were you going to say? I felt like I stepped on your lines a little bit there.
Yeah, no, you're good. I think that yeah, you just need to have a quick for those people who are you really want to keep in your life who are openly bashing the church. I think you just need to have a quick conversation with them and say, hey, you need to respect my beliefs, and that's what this is what respecting my beliefs means. It doesn't mean you agree. It doesn't mean you're completely silent,
Yeah.
on what you feel. It means that you ask questions to the right people and you think carefully about how these posts affect the friends and family that are in the church before you post them, right?
Right.
So it looks like Timber was along those lines there in the comments. He said, I've had many friends and family members leave the church. Honestly, it's heartbreaking for me, but I'm still happy. I'm still happy to maintain relationships as long as they're willing to respect my beliefs. I feel like so many just get vitriolic towards the church, though, like my brother. Sorry to hear about your brother, Timber, but yeah, that happens a lot. Like people just get really bitter and angry and treat it like it's this evil, like it's Mordor, like they treat it like it's just the thing that's ever been created, and its sole purpose is just destroy people, which is crazy. So it's
Right.
really not that bad. It's actually quite nice over here. So,
Well, it reminds me of our grandfather, right? Like our grandparents, they left the church, and he was never in the church for our entire lives, but he was still incredibly respectful. In person, he came
oh yeah,
to our baptisms, he came to our most important moments. So he came to our missions, like our homecoming talks, our farewells, all of that. And he would dress up, and he was still incredibly supportive and respectful because he saw that the good that the church did. And so, I mean, he encouraged Dad to continue to pursue his education in the church. He sent him to Rick's College. And Dad says, like, that's probably like the only moment of actual revelation that Grandpa actually acted on. But he also was really supportive of Dad serving a mission, too, which I thought was super, super cool and something that you wouldn't really expect. But those actions manifest his actual belief system there, showing like, yeah, no, he still viewed the fruits of the church and this belief system. And I think that's what he was getting at. At the very end, he talked about how he saw two beautiful, healthy, happy people leave the church and become really unhealthy and mentally in a dark place after a few years of leaving the church. And I think it's because they're tasting the fruit of their new belief system, right? And I think he can see that difference. And then B, they're probably engaging in some toxic behavior, getting into some toxic algorithms as well. But anything else in the chats?
Canuto de Leon is being awesome as well as Ministry Leaders Unite. So I'm glad to have you guys here.
Right on. Yeah. Thanks for joining us on a Saturday night.
And Timber, you were in that Jubilee video, right? A little bit starstruck by that. That's kind of awesome.
That is super cool.
That's cool to have you here. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's.
All right,
Well, real quick
ahead.
To wrap this all up, great movie out there on Netflix called The Glass Onion. It's kind of like a new take on like an Agatha Christie type, like an Hercule Poirot detective, where what's his name? Daniel Craig, the 007 James Bond guy. He stars as the detective, and his name is Benoit Blanc. I'm butchering that probably, but there are a handful of actors on this in this movie that just kind of say whatever comes to their mind. And it really gets under his skin a little bit. He's got this dynamite line in there. He says, "It's a dangerous thing to mistake speaking without thought for speaking the truth." And I think that strikes at the heart of the Instagram generation. We see so many people just hop online and just say whatever comes to mind. And I don't think they got that lesson in Sunday school that your words have an impact. They have an influence on those people around you. And this is something that this poor brother is experiencing right now. He's saying like, "Oh my gosh, your words are kind of hurting my feelings a little bit, because you're saying this and you're acting differently in front of me, and I don't like that." So I think this is just a big call to action for everyone. Just remember, your words are going to impact people. Be the same person offline and online, and I think that's going to be helpful for everybody. It's also a little call to action that not everybody should be speaking online. I think it was.
Well, it's amazing.
Yeah, go ahead.
For an app that has like tons of filters, people spend so much time changing the filter on their video, but not, filtering their thoughts at all. Like
Ooh.
they won't actually take a minute and think like, maybe I shouldn't say this publicly to millions of people.
Yeah. I think you could turn that into like a general conference intro story to a talk,
Yeah, there's got
the
to be
parable
something
of the
there.
filter. Yeah.
Parable of the filter. That's funny.
Yeah. Well, and then I think it was Plato that said, wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something, right? So
Yep.
keep that in mind as you're viewing content. And we'll move on to our next question. So this one comes from, let's see, let me change my screen. There we go. This is from 619 Riverside Drive. I hope you just didn't give your address out to everybody, but the title is, what do you do when you have a calling you don't enjoy? This is something that I want to hear from the chat. I don't know that I have all the answers to this one, but we'll get into it. He says, I don't want to get into my calling, but I don't like it. There is nothing very wrong. I just don't enjoy it. It doesn't relate to my interests or strengths. I'm not good at it. It's mostly something where I'm on my own. So I can't even say I enjoy the opportunity to serve with certain people. I've been in this calling for 2 years. I don't think I don't like doing this. It's a good reason to ask to be released. So I thought I'd just hang in until that time comes. Some days, though, it really wears me down, and I wonder why I'm volunteering my time for something I don't want to do. Have you ever had a calling you just didn't like, and how did you handle it? Okay, what do you think?
That is interesting. Yeah, well, I have a lot of thoughts on this. So first of all, you definitely should tell your leaders if you don't like your calling. I mean, not like you shouldn't. You're not. Not, it's totally aside for being released or not. You should let them know if you enjoy it or not. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that leaders, they pray about who they're going to extend callings to, and they're going to use the revelation they receive to make that, to extend that offer. But they're working on a very limited knowledge set of who you are. Like, they don't know you as well as they should, or as well as they would like to, right? Because they're so busy. Everyone's busy. So they pray, they receive revelation, they extend the calling. It's up to you to provide some level of feedback about your life and your situation. That's your responsibility in receiving that calling. If you do not provide any information and you just say, I accept the calling, great. Then that works well for the bishop, but does it work well for you? You're shorting yourself without, by not giving enough information to the leadership. Almost never will you find leadership who wants to stick you in a calling that you hate just to give you an opportunity to grow.
They're sitting like a Bond villain, just like, ooh, how can we get under their skin today?
Yeah, they're like, oh, I want to see him become a more well-rounded person, so he needs to go work with the young men for 5 years. Right. It's just like leadership, they're just not thinking that way. So, if you don't like it, say, hey, I'm not having a good time. And you know what? Your leaders will almost every time be like, oh, great, let's start phasing you out and getting you into a different situation. Or let's talk more about why and see if we can address that.
I
so
agree,
it's just communication across the board.
It reminds me of that quote from President Nelson where he said, good revelation is based off of good information. And I think going back to what you were saying, it's really important that you give your honest, uncumbered opinions and thoughts to your leaders while they're talking about the call to you. So in that interview where they extend the call, tell them what you're thinking. Tell them what your thoughts are. Tell them what's going through your mind. And then if it doesn't feel right, you can totally say like, hey, can you give me a couple days, or can you give me a week? Let me think this through. And then the leader can take that. They can pray about it. This person can pray about it too. Because there is, on the other side of this argument, something to be said about a learning and growing opportunity. So maybe it is something that you don't like to do, but maybe there is something that God is trying to help you to learn through that calling, and that you can have a growing and a learning experience, a developing experience as you try and grapple with something that you don't like or that you're not good at. Like my children will do this all the time where they're like, I'm not good at this, so I don't want to try it. And it's like, well, I don't think that's a really good reason to really give up. It's like, nobody's good at anything when they first start off. You are going to be naturally gifted at certain areas, and you're going to do well in certain callings and stuff like that. But there's almost a small, subtle call to action within that, saying like, maybe there's something for you to learn in this. And if you approach it with that attitude, saying, maybe I don't like this for a reason, and maybe there is some kind of deep-seated attitude change that I can incorporate into who I am that will help me become a better person in the future with future callings and things like that. So I will say there is that side of the argument to consider. But anything else? Any other thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, well, Tyler Smith says, I stopped attending church because I didn't like a calling. Problem solved. But you might have solved that problem, but you might have created a couple other problems in the process.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one way to go, right?
Yeah, the force quit option. There's definitely an option there.
Quit.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen. In some ways it's very effective. Depends on what your goals are. But
Right.
Nursery Leaders Unite says some people have more patience with detractors. Oh, this was up earlier, actually, with detractors. I don't think it's fair to assume we all should have the same ability with people who are not aligned with our values. Fair, that's definitely fair.
Totally fair.
And then he has a follow-up question: is it okay to turn down a calling? I mean, yeah,
what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's totally fine. I mean, that goes back to that revelation, right? Like, know, you need to pray about the calling before you accept it and receive revelation upon your situation, because the bishop doesn't know everything that's happening in your life. Like, he's not supposed to. Like, that's up to you to decide. You're the steward of your own life and your own home and your own family. You need to know if it's going to work or not. You know, I remember hearing a story about a guy who accepted a calling like a month before he left. He moved out of the ward, and the bishop didn't know he was moving. He's like, why didn't you tell me? He's like, oh, you gave me the calling. You don't say no to a calling. He's like, well, now I have to, call somebody else. Like, you just create a huge hassle for us. So,
right.
Yeah, you definitely can turn down callings, and you should pray about it. And you should, I wouldn't take it so easily to just like bat away callings left and right, but like really pray about it and see if you can stretch. And if you can't, that's fine.
Well, I think there's that verse in D&C that talks about many are called, but few are chosen. And why are they not chosen? And it speaks to their desires. Ultimately, it says like, the people who want to serve are called and they actually serve. And so if those desires are not there to serve, it's your responsibility to not repress that, to not just keep that deep down inside and say, yeah, I'm going to serve. And when you really don't intend to, like if you just intend to just check out and, I'm not going to do that, whatever. It's like, that's actually worse than just saying, I'm not going to serve and then not serving, but to say, yes, I am going to serve. I am going to do my best job. I am going to give it my all. And then to just do kind of like this half crap approach to your calling, I think does more of a disservice to the ward. It does a disservice to yourself as well. So if you don't have desires to serve, it's on you to tell that to your leaders and to let them know, like, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to do that. And I've had people tell me that as well. As I've extended callings to people, I've had people just be upfront with me and say, like, you know what, it's not going to happen for me. Like I don't want to do this. It doesn't feel good for me. I don't want to personally. I'm not good at this calling. I don't like it. And it's like, okay, I really appreciate you telling me this because this is an opportunity that you could use to overcome that weakness. But if you're not ready to do that, I don't want you serving in that position. I don't think the Lord wants you serving in a position where you're not going to do your best and you don't want to be there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. So Canuto de Leon, I'm probably butchering that too. He said, figure out a way to think outside the box and incorporate something you do like into the calling. So get creative with it.
There you go. Like, there you go. That's like the Jocko Willink idea, of like, you're going to say good.
Yeah.
Right. You get a calling you don't like, you're going to say good. And you're going to find something good from it.
Tyler Smith said, I'm relieved you both caught my sarcasm. So,
yeah.
Jacob Wardell says, any advice for helping a loved one who has severe anxiety who really struggles to attend church because of severe anxiety? I mean, I feel like I have severe anxiety sometimes, but whenever I give a talk and I start to get nervous, like right before you get up, your heart starts pounding and things like that. I try to remember all the other people who've given talks before that were really nervous in my life, and I can't remember a single person. Like, it just doesn't sink in, like you're going to get up there and you're going to see a bunch of people who are doing their best, and who are here and present and want to hear what you say. But if you mess up, or if you fumble through it and you're not giving your best performance, nobody cares. Like
Yeah.
in the best way possible, nobody cares, right?
Well,
So
yeah. Well, that's a really great point, actually, because I think I heard somewhere somebody say something along those lines of like, when you are feeling scared and anxious, it's a lot of times because you are focusing so much on yourself and you're worried that everyone is judging you for what you're saying, what you're doing, how you're acting. But in reality, everyone is so caught up in their own minds that nobody's really paying attention to you. So
yeah,
it is a little bit saying like, yeah, nobody really cares because they're too focused on themselves. Everyone is so racked with their own idiosyncratic problems because everyone's lives are so complicated. They've all got things like 10,000 plates spinning in their minds that when you walk through the door, the first thing that they're thinking probably isn't like, oh my gosh, did you see that person? He came to church today. What a crazy guy. It's like, nah. A lot of times they're thinking, oh no, my
right.
child just ran down the aisle and he's trailing Cheerios behind him, and I'm going to have to interrupt sacrament to go pick him up and to pick up all those Cheerios. And, it's like there's a lot else going on through your mind. So it's
Oh
not that
yeah.
I'm trying to say ignore it and that you don't have a problem as much as I'm saying get stronger.
Yeah, well, to that point, like whenever I get nervous about anything in church, you think through the process of why people are there. They're there because they heard the gospel and it spoke to them and they have a testimony of Christ. And part of that is the atonement. So let people use the atonement and forgive you for any trespasses that you might incur while you're there being anxious. And just let them extend their love to you. You have to allow that to happen. When you think through that process and realize that everyone is there because they felt Christ's love and they just want to be a part of that community, you're surrounded by friends like the
Yeah.
entire time. You're just surrounded by the friendliest people you'll ever find. So try and remember that as as
But
the anxiety starts to ramp up.
I think the other part is like I think anxiety, the deep-seated anxiety comes from a fear of being judged by other people, but in that thinking, you are automatically judging other people that they are going to judge you. And I think to what you were saying earlier, like that's more times than not, that's not the case. It's like people are
Yeah.
give them the benefit of the doubt. Like just give people grace and enough to say they're probably not going to judge me. They're probably going to welcome me with open arms.
Yeah.
And if anyone is out there judging you for coming to church, they're jerks.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry
They're
about those
rude.
people. They probably got a lot of other crap going on.
Not worth
These
your
aren't
time.
fully
Yeah.
formed people. But in my experience, for the most part, especially leaders of the church, they're going to bend over backwards to help you feel welcomed and to help you try and want to come back as much as you can. And that's what a lot of people are focused on.
100%. So
Okay.
Tyler Smith said, I heard general authorities are decreasing ward sizes down to 100 members so that more people can get calling opportunities in the ward. That would be sweet.
I've
And
heard
it is
that too,
important for
yeah.
members to have a calling because it shows that they are genuinely needed in the organization. People stop attending when they don't feel needed or that they aren't contributing. Yeah, I mean, having a calling helps you feel like you're a part of it and gives you ownership in it. So totally
Right.
agree to that.
Right. It shifts
Cool.
the dynamic from like a social club into like a volunteer program where you're actually participating and contributing something. I think that's great. But I also want to slide in there because I served a long time in the Elders Quorum presidency that ministering assignments are something that everyone should have. And that's a calling that, or an assignment that you can treat as a main calling. If you don't have one already, just focus on being a great minister. And focus
Oh,
on
yeah,
connecting with those
100%.
families, have them over for dinner, play games with them. I had a great counselor in a stake presidency once who invited us over to his house, and he broke out a bunch of gourmet cheese, and he started just chopping them up. He gave us cheese on crackers, and he explained the different cheese for every single slice that he gave us. He's like, oh, this is brie, and this one is, an aged cheddar and stuff like that. And it was really good cheese. And he was like, I'm a cheesemonger. This is something that I really like to do. And then he told us after that, he was like, try and become friends with everybody that you minister to. And the way that I judge if someone is my friend or not is I invite them into my house and I share a hobby with them, or I share
Yeah.
a meal with them. And that's how you can tell if you're friends with that person. And that's really stayed with me over the years. And I would recommend that is like, hey, if you're going to minister, try and become a friend, invite them over, have dinner with these people, play games if you like to play board games. It's a great way that my wife and I have found of getting to know people and making friends in the Word. But so do your ministering. I'm going to be that guy.
Yeah.
The ministering police. Ah!
That's funny.
Yeah.
Cool. Should we jump into the next one?
All right, let's do this. Okay, so the next one. All right, let me share my screen. This is coming from Throwaway Account. 10,000. Nope, I think that's 1 million. Anyway, it says, I'm not sure I love my husband. Throwaway Account. Hello, everyone. As the title says, for some reason, I've had this feeling that I don't really love my husband. We have been married for 7 years. We dated for a couple months before he proposed. That's definitely coming from the church. We also have 2 kids, 6 and 4. He is an RM, a good father, overall a worthy man. What some would call good on paper. He was the first man I ever dated and not having much experience dating. I thought that's all I would ever need. 7 years later, I'm starting to fear that the church is all we have in common. We don't really have many common interests, but we have a good laugh from time to time. In hindsight, maybe I felt pressure to get married right away. I was scared to get older and to be left behind. I'm not sure I'm happy, and I'm not sure I could do eternity with him. I feel terrible for him and for my children. I'm not sure what to do. English is not my first language. Sorry if the writing is confusing. Well, first things first, the writing was not confusing. So great job on that. Big little call out there. What are some of your first thoughts as you read something like that?
Yeah, I think one of the initial thoughts when people have rough patches in their marriage, right, is that like they look back at, maybe this was all a bad idea, or maybe I got married too quickly, or they look back at the original decision to get married. But what they don't realize is that the person they are now, looking back at the person they were when they made that decision, are completely different people.
Yeah.
Right. And that is for good or for bad, right? So it's useless. It's kind of useless, I think, to look back and say, "Man, I shouldn't have done that." That's just not going to help you. And you had no idea you're going to get to this situation at this point in time. It was just not anticipated. So what you can instead think about is like, why the disconnect? And this is something I practice all the time. Like why the disconnect?
Yeah.
And how do we converge back onto a common path? And it's hard. It's really tough. But I think that, if you just like be as open as possible with your spouse and say like, hey, we're struggling, then you can does not take a long time to get back on track and grow together. Because this person that's complaining right now about feeling disconnected has no idea where they'll be in the future if they work towards it. Right. Yeah. So there'll be another point on the map where they look back and like, man, we were really close, then we were really far apart, and now we're really close again. That's totally possible with the right attitude and the right approach to it.
Yeah, I will say it sounds like this gal has maybe slipped into some of the anti-TikTok algorithms, because some of her talking points are exactly some of the talking points that I hear from anti-members that are saying like, hey, the church forced me into this relationship when I was at a young age. I didn't get the typical college experience. I didn't get to sleep around. I didn't get to really feel and figure out what I like and what I want. And so I would say like if you are in those algorithms, just take that with a big grain of salt and understand that these people that are spouting these ideas probably don't have your best interest at heart. Like you have a beautiful family, a great relationship already with a husband who is worthy and who is sticking around, who's been providing and who's been helping you so far, and you've got 2 kids together, and that's a big deal. That's no small matter. So keep that in mind before you throw that away, before you just like completely just toss that all down the drain. But there is something else to point out. So when I was going to BYU Idaho, there was a professor that my wife had who said, one day I realized that, I think he was like some biology professor. And he said, one day I realized that like I knew everything there was to know about biology because I had intentionally studied it. I had read all the books, I've taken tests, I have done everything, I've worked at it for years, and so that my teaching ability in biology was great, it was top notch. And then he realized one day, he was like, I need to put that same approach to my marriage and to my relationship, because it's something that a lot of people just take for granted. They're just like, yeah, we're married, we tied the knot, we did the ceremony, great, we're done. And if you just neglect your relationship, you can't expect it to become strong and healthy and happy over years. It takes intentional time, effort, and work. There's a great book out there called 7 Principles That Make Marriage Work. It's a book that was recommended to me when I first got married, and I was like, I don't need no stinking book. I know how to do this. You know? And then like after 6 months passed and you start hitting the bumps, you know, of the hard part of marriage, where you're like, oh man, it's tough living with a different person who's coming from different experiences, a different childhood, and all of that. Like I was like, oh man, I reached out to the friend who recommended it. I was like, what's the name of that book you were talking about? You mentioned something about a book, and so I get this book, 7 Principles That Make Marriage Work by John Gottman. And it is a great book. It's full of a lot of really helpful exercises and activities that help you to strengthen your marriage and that help you to get back into a healthy and happy place and away from the brink. Because the Dr. Gottman, he studied divorce. Like that was his main field as a I think it was a relationship and guidance counselor or something like that, marriage counselor. And so he had created a bunch of signs of when you were about to get divorced. He could actually predict it with a high degree of certainty. And so he created a bunch of different exercises and activities that would help steer you away from divorce and get you towards that stronger relationship. And it comes down to a lot of times just taking time to communicate openly with your spouse and to figure out where they're at. It talks a lot about like there's this one chapter that's always stuck with me. It talks about like a roadmap, and it says like a lot of times when you get married, you and your spouse are on the same map together. You're on the same road. You're headed the same direction. And then throughout the years, if you're not spending active and intentional time nurturing your relationship, your roads eventually start to split. And you actually, because you're going through different experiences and different life challenges, your roadmap is updating, and you need to make sure that you know what is on your spouse's mind. So it's talking about things like, what are their current fears? What are their current ambitions? What are their current dreams and their current desires and stuff like that? If you don't know what those are, then your marriage is kind of on the rocks a little bit. You know, it shows that there's some decay that you need to work on, which I think is really, really important for people to understand.
100%. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we got some comments to catch up on.
Let's do it.
So Nursery Leaders Unite say, is it okay to want no calling? And I think that's okay.
I think that's fine.
know?
I'm not going to tell
I think
on
everyone, yeah, I feel like everyone just like at some point in their life just needs a break and just needs to be carried by the Lord for a little bit, you know? Like, hey,
I tell you what, one of the things that I really appreciated about the current ward that I'm in is that they have like a policy where they give every family like 3 to 6 months before they give them a calling. Like they get to know the family, they make sure they feel welcome, and then they give them a calling. They intentionally wait. I actually really appreciated that. Now, I know that that's kind of a hot topic. There are some other people that are like, you need to get a calling as soon as you get in the ward, or else, you know, you might fall off the track. For someone like me, right, where I'm going to go ride or die with the church, you know, I thought it was kind of great. Like, especially after being in callings where I was giving a lot of time before that, like that was really nice to just have that time with my family and just to kind of go through a Sabbath where I just show up at church and then I go home. And me magnifying my calling was mainly just working on my ministering assignment. That was fantastic. Love that. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, well, that actually plays well into our featured comment from the Discord from Kaladin.
Yeah,
he talks a little bit about what he just moved into a new ward. He wanted to know how he could get more involved and things like that. I think ministering is a great place to start. Like, find your elders quorum present, find your ministering people, and go minister. Just like introduce. And that's a great way to get into it. I think that like you said with that ward, giving new families like a 3 to 6 month like break into it, as long as they know that's what the ward's doing, I think that's great.
Right,
If they don't know, then they might feel a little bit ignored. But yeah, I think that's awesome. I could definitely use that. So that's great.
Yeah, and that comment from Kaladin, I think it's worth a little shout out. So Kaladin is a part of our Discord. So we game like once or twice a week. Sometimes there's a lot of chats that happen in there. We talk about things that dads talk about. So fitness, finances, movies, family, everything. So pretty much anything that you want to talk about, we talk about it in there. And you can come and watch me get slaughtered by everyone when we game, Yeah.
I recently tried Halo and just got destroyed. Halo Infinite, that was really bad. So it's really embarrassing.
So there's a little plug. If you want to come play games with us, come play games. If you don't have if you're in a Forgotten Elders Quorum, you've got an open invite. Come join our Discord and come game with us.
Yeah, it's at dadsneedfriends.com. The link to the Discord there.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to other comments here. Jacob Wardell says, appreciate your viewpoints. Thanks. Also, I believe therapy can help with anxiety for sure. Yeah. Cognitive behavioral therapy can, like when focusing on resolving anxious issues, especially on things like public speaking and other things like that, super helpful. Just gotta be careful who you pick your therapist nowadays, because not a lot of therapists are super friendly towards religion. So be careful on that front.
I would say, watch out for those therapists, because if you have 30 minutes in a free weekend, you can go on to like Udemy. Like if you got $15, you can get your life coach certification, And so there are a lot of people that position themselves as therapists, but that won't actually call themselves therapists, but they actually operate as life coaches, and all they are is just like anti-members of the church that are trying to grow their Instagram following. And there are a lot of people out there like that. And so be careful. I would say exercise caution with that. A lot of times I actually skew more towards self-help. Like there are plenty of resources out there, a lot of really good books. Turns out people have been on this earth for a really long time. And so a lot of people have faced the challenges that we faced, and they've written great books. They have great videos, great resources where you can actually figure out what's going on. So, I mean, like from finances to like getting your kids to sleep through the night, raising good kids, managing a relationship. There are so many resources out there. I would say I would try that, go the DIY approach before I would go to a therapist. But maybe that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, maybe that's another thing we should put in the Discord. There's a bunch of self-help books, recommendations there.
Oh, I've got plenty.
All right, so we've got we got a lot of comments. Great. So Canuto says, let's see. He says, I hope so. At Tyler, I've been telling that to my wife instead of having a huge ward split up into 3 branches or smaller wards. Yeah, so back to the smaller wards thing. That'll be really cool. I think it's mostly just like a Utah, Arizona issue, but hey, I'd love to to see smaller wards.
Well, I've heard that, and then the other rumor I've heard is that we might be shifting to 1 hour church. Like I heard, this is the rumor that's going around, is that there are some branches or some wards in Idaho or like Payson or something like that are moving to 1 hour blocks. And I'm like, whoa, could you imagine?
Nice. I can't even. Jacob Wardell, random question. What are your thoughts on AI generated music? Oh, cool. Using hymns and scriptures and putting them to music. And if we want suggestions, if you're going to join us in the Discord, Jacob, share some links there. We'd love to see it. That'd be awesome.
That would be super.
Use it for the intro music, he said. So Tyler says, don't toss away a boring marriage that's worthy in the eyes of the Lord for the adventures of the world. Everyone that tosses a good man regrets it. Yeah, sometimes a good man can get boring. You just need to activate him,
Totally agree.
Need some kind of adventure.
But hey, here's the other thing that I want to say about that, because I now have experience with 3 separate families where this has happened, where the wife wakes up and realizes that either A, she's oppressed, or A, that she's been hoodwinked, or B, that she's been hoodwinked, or C, that she has made a bunch of mistakes in her life, and that she has slipped into these algorithms that have been telling her, like, you need yeah, the church didn't give you any opportunity to go out there and live life and do that. And so I know 3 women that have left, that divorced their husbands, left him with the kids, and then just went to travel the world and to pursue like a different career and stuff like that, because that's kind of how they were like, their mind had been warped to view that as success. They were like, yeah, family, they're dragging me down. And this is why I don't necessarily like therapists too much, because every one of these gals went to a therapist who was like, you know what, your happiness is most important, and so if your family is not making you happy, divorce them and get out of there and go make some money. Which, I mean, it reminds me of like that line in A Christmas Carol, like, here lies Ebenezer Scrooge, the richest man in the cemetery. It's like, how much did he leave behind?
For real.
All of it. There are things that you can't take with you after this life, and a lot of people are forgetting that. Chanel brought this up the other day, real quick. This one hits home, but the board game Life? You remember that game?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How did you win? Do you remember how you win the game of life?
Oh, I can't even remember. You got to didn't you like get to the end without? I don't know. I can't remember.
It's whoever had the most money at the end. So whoever had the most money, the most assets at the end, won the game of life. Isn't that terrible? Like, as a kid, you're like, yeah, that's awesome, but it's like you're almost training kids by playing that game into thinking that like life is about making money, and you win life by making the most money, by making more, and that's relational too. So it's teaching you to judge yourself based off of other people. So like, don't pursue what you want to do, don't pursue what you think you should be doing, pursue what's going to make you money. And it comes from a generation where, like, you remember, like, there were, like, 3 career choices that we had. It was, like, you could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, or you could be, like, a dentist. Like, you could be a surgeon, a physician, or a dentist. That was it. It was like, anything else would be kind of a step down or a disappointment.
Oh, that's funny. Now I gotta go play that game and hate on boomers some more.
There you go. Oh, boy. We're going to hear back from that in the comments.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. We've got a couple more. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Like John DeLynn did. I'm guessing that's in reference to your fill out and, get your Udemy.
That's right. Totally.
Certification.
Yeah. So if you got $15 in a free weekend, you can become a life coach.
You too can host a podcast. Yeah, exactly. So,
and there are a lot of people that do that. Like, there are so many people that like leave the church. I don't understand it, but they leave the church, they become a life coach, and then they're like, you know what I need to do? I need to help other people leave the church and make money off of them, so that I can recoup the money that I spent on influencers who sold me a course on how to leave the church and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's the satanic, corrupted versions of MLMs. It's the dark side of the MLM culture.
It is.
It's warped into anti-Mormon experience. So,
yes,
that's what they're
absolute
doing.
power.
Well, I don't know what it is with MLMs. It's always
here's the deal: somehow. Is I actually looked up on Udemy one weekend. Like, I was just like, hey, how much money does it take to get a life coaching certification? It was $15. Like, I actually looked at that. They were running a discount. It was like, hey, you can get it for $15. And the interesting thing about the life coaching certification on Udemy was the things that they were talking about. It wasn't like, hey, earn your life coaching certification and help people get on the right track. It was, here's your life coaching certification, and this will help you to set up your own business and to start making money. And so the whole focus was just on like, how do I turn people into profit? How do I turn people into money? Which is kind of like the Cain principle from the Bible. If you want to get super dark and archaic, I'm going to transform my brother into property, and I'm going to take over, and I'm going to win. It's like, that's a little dark spin on life coaching for you.
So that's where all the source of MLMs come from, is Cain. That's what you're telling me.
Cain.
He's the originator. Dang it. Yeah, that's all clear now.
And he brands himself as Dr. Cain.
Dr. Cain. So yeah, everyone's confirming that that's what they're hearing too. Nurture Leaders Unite, 1 hour, 100 to 200 peeps per ward.
Yeah.
In order to fit more into the buildings. Yeah, that's awesome. Love is a skill. Practice like you want to be good at relationships. That's true.
100%.
And successful marriages take work. And the most important things in life aren't things, they're people. Yep.
That's right.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, were there
Cool.
any others? I think there was one more question. So let me see if I got. Let me pull this up real quick. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, hold on. This is the last one. This is a bonus question. I don't know that I sent this to you.
Cool.
Okay. Here we go. This is this is the same guy. I can't remember which other one that he sent, but this is from 619 Riverside Drive. It says, married men, do you have friends in the church? It says, our lesson in Elders Quorum today was taken from the recent conference talk, Ye Are My Friends, as well as an older talk by President Eyring, True Friends. During the beginning of the discussion, I thought, I don't have any friends. My wife is my best friend, but she's also my only friend. There are people I chat with at church, but we don't talk outside of church unless it's related to church business. There are also people that I could call if I needed a blessing, but no one I'd be comfortable calling if I just needed someone to talk to. Then I started looking around at the room and thought, I don't know if anyone else here really has friends either. Nobody took the discussion in that direction, so I thought I'd bring it up here. Married men, do you have friends in the church? If so, how do you make and maintain those friendships in spite of your demands on your time, job, family, and church?
Yep. Yeah, that's a great question. No, you're probably right. People don't have friends. Men don't have friends. It's very difficult for guys to find the time to have friendships. So, yeah, that's hilarious that he just like kind of woke up one day and realized that, oh, we're all just terribly lonely. Like everyone's
Right.
just terribly alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
Well, I remember hearing one time, like, the greatest miracle that Jesus ever performed was having 12 friends. You know?
For real. That's funny. Yeah. So I think that to that point, how I make friends in the church right now, what I do is share hobbies, like you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. That's a good one. And just like try and like, I've done this with my wife a couple times. I'll talk to Hannah before. I'm like, let's see how much we can learn about this family today at church. It's
Yeah.
like try and have a really good conversation and see how much you can gain from them. And that can lead to some friendships as you show interest in other people. But most of the time now, I just game with people on Discord.
Yeah.
That's how I make friends at this point because it's asynchronous. You can do it late at night after the kids are asleep,
Yeah.
and that's what I do on that front. Because, yeah, trying to like squeeze friendships into your already hectic life is very difficult.
It's
Women
very
find
difficult.
ways to
It's
do
very
it, but
demanding, too.
Men
Yeah.
just don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. So, I've got a few different takes on this. So the first is the first strategy I'd recommend is inviting couples over to play games. Because that's kind of like the interview to see if you want to be friends with this person. Outside of that. So you and your wife, you invite them over. You play some games with them. Great, awesome. You can kind of get to know them a little bit better there. The other thing that I found really helpful, and I've made some really, really good friendships in the church through this. And it's being open when people invite you to do something, taking them up on this. So there was this guy in my last Elders Quorum who he was my neighbor, really big guy, like fit, like athletic, like built. And his last name was Strong, which was really funny. But he invited me one day. He was like, have you ever played pickleball? And I was like, no, I've never played. He's like, do you want to play? And I was like, I was trying to overcome, my timidness and my internal agreeableness and stuff like that. I was like, yes, I want to come. I'm going to try something new. And so I went and he wiped the floor with me every single time that we played. But it led to me playing with him pretty much like once or twice a week, every week for like a couple months. And we eventually got like 4 or 5 other guys playing pickleball. And we actually became really, really good friends throughout that. So, I mean, that was super cool. I had another guy invite me to go running with him. And I put him off because I'm like, you're going to run way faster than me. I was the fat kid in middle school. I'm not going to do it. But he persisted. And eventually I was like, all right, I'll go on and run with you. I went running with him and it turned into us running. I remember it turned into like one year we ran every day outside of Sunday together early in the morning for an entire year, just running together, talking together.
Wow.
And we ran with like a different group, and we were running all over the hills of St. George and stuff like that. It was amazing. He's a really good friend. And then I had another really good friend who was a principal of a high school out in St. George, and he would let us lift weights in like the high school weight room every morning. And so like me and my buddy would just go there and we'd lift weights together. So we'd go early in the morning and we'd get like pre-workout donuts and stuff like that, you know, and we just share donuts, lift weights, and we would just like commiserate about, you know, the tougher things of life, you know, of like mothers-in-law and callings and all kinds of fun things that married men can't really talk about to other people too much, you know, without raising eyebrows.
100%.
So take people up, you know, take people up if they invite you out. And on the other side of that, invite people. If you've got a hobby that you love, invite other people to try it with you. And you might just make some friends.
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, let's see. Tyler Smith says, I like this channel. You both are very real and understand common frustrations that men have in the church. Thank you. Yes, we do
Appreciate
understand them. We're very frustrated by those things. Do you consider yourself as an, I'm guessing you're saying extrovert or an introvert? I'd say reluctant. Yeah, introvert for sure. I'd much rather be alone in the woods 99% of the time. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I bet you consider yourself an extrovert, probably.
No, I consider myself an introvert. I mean, you remember me as a kid. I was terribly shy. Terribly shy. You did all the talking for me when I was a kid. And so, I mean, it's something that I've had to work on and conscientiously overcome. But in doing that, in trying to practice intentionally to become an extrovert, and the church has been super helpful. Like, try a mission on an introvert. And it turns out that being social and becoming an extrovert is like a muscle. You know, the more you work at it, the stronger and stronger it becomes, and the more able you become at connecting with people and socializing and things like that. But yeah.
Oh, 100%. That's awesome. Everyone's cracking up about Jacob. He said, when you said Cain, that made me remember that one of my mission companions told me that he thought Cain was Bigfoot. Yeah,
I've heard that. I've heard. Wait.
Yeah.
Wasn't that in like
around out there,
like the gospel library somewhere? I think it might have been a book, like a Talmage book or something like that. I can't remember, but anyway.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah. Cain's Bigfoot. I do like that theory. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And you need a horror movie about Cain and being Bigfoot now. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Jacob says, I appreciate your advice on making friends. As a married guy, I've struggled to make friends, especially since I'm an introvert and have been in branches, not wards, for the last several years. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah. It's tough making friends.
It is.
He also says, thanks for making this YouTube channel and thanks for doing this live stream. No problem, dude.
Appreciate it. Man, that's great. This is why we do it.
Yeah, it's because we're lonely.
That's because we need friends.
That's right. Nursery Leaders Unite says, accept invitations, set a goal to invite others. I like it. And that's
right on. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, I think how long have we gone? Is this getting too long? Are we gaming tonight?
This might be a good time to call it.
All right.
Well, I'm going to try to after I get the kiddos down, so I'll jump on later tonight.
All right. Okay, so if anyone wants to join us, we're probably going to be gaming tonight. I might be gaming. I might be sleeping. We'll see. We'll see where the night takes us.
Sometimes I don't game and I just work and then I jump in the Discord and listen to watch other people game too. That's pretty fun. So maybe I'll do that.
Right on.
Cool.
Okay. All right. Well, until next time, I'm Hayden Holm. This is Tanner, and we are Salty Saints. We'll see you later.
See ya.